What's up, YouTube? Welcome to another episode of Kev Videos True Stories. Today is not really a story. I'm going to break down the different generations for those that have been asking.
I never stopped banging. I started banging hard, then I got so hard till it was a shame.
Welcome to another episode of KM Videos True Stories. Let's kick this one off with a disclaimer. Everybody's not going to agree, and every generation is not written in stone because there's no handbook for this stuff. This is my perception through my research and understanding, right? Just talking to different people over the years, processing this information and putting it all together. I don't have this written down, I'm going off my head. So in the beginning, you have the founders, you have the originals. Raymond Washington and those in his age bracket. They could be older, but Raymond was born in 1953. And I find that a lot of his original close partners also born in 1953, and you had a few born in 1954. I would call those the originals, the original first generations. Then you have those born in 1955. You have A.C. Babalui, this claims to be an original. It's possible because 7th graders hang with 9th graders, 10th graders hang with 12th graders, and so on. I believe Jamel Barnes was also born in 1955. So that's where it gets tricky at. And this is why I say 1953 to 1955 birth dates are the first originals.
Jamil had love like everybody else. Everybody had love. We was kids. We had love for one another. That's what made this survive like it did. Because we was young, 13 and 14, and we had a leader who was like, wow.
But as Crips began to spread throughout the county of Los Angeles, you had other guys born in 1955 that fell under the baby Crips, and you had others that fell up under the originals. Honcho, out of Compton at the time, born in 1955, along with Jimmy Lavender from Bishop and Watts. A lot of Pyrus, like Bartender, were also born in 1955. Honcho considers himself a baby Crip. He says they was the baby Crips.
Raymond was the truest leader. I mean, he was a man. And he'd tell him in a heartbeat, I send my baby Crips after you. He ain't sending the Crips, he's sending the baby Crips. And we was his brainchild. We was his warriors. He's sending 14, 15-year-olds after you. Yeah, you done.
And those was Raymond's soldiers. He taught them. So if Raymond didn't have you in training, it's a good chance you're not that original baby Crip, which I view as the second generation. Jimmy Lavender and them ain't even banging. So you can't even put them in a generation with the Crips, and would be a little unfair based on his date. So across the board, everything ain't gonna be the same. But the evolution of gangbanging all remain the same. Now, that next generation, 1956, 57, you might want to throw 58 in there, but I'm gonna say that 56, 57 falls up under the baby Crips. They fall up under Honcho and them, and a lot of these guys interacted, got locked up together, partied together, went to the Watts festivals, you know what I mean? Got into it with the anti-Crip sets back in the day. So that would be like the Cutes, the Barefoot Pookies, guys like that, right? Now when you start sectioning things off, the West Side and Compton are gonna be different from the East Side. But again, you know, people moved around, people went to school together, people hung together.
In Compton, we had We had Mona Park, we had Carver Park, but they was on the outskirts.
Right.
You know, when we came down here, because I came from the east side, Mac came from the east side.
Right.
When we came to them Grandies, before us, they had some dudes called the Little Devils. And they was beasts out here in Compton.
Right.
They was beasts in them Grandies. Right. So they became with us.
And so it falls back to guys like Mac Thomas being original. He's original and he takes it to Compton. Some of the guys on the east side, like Melvin Hardy, a lot of dudes moved to the west side. Now, I'm not going to talk about dudes that was born later on. I'm saying up in this area. So now you have two generations of guys, right? You have that first generation originals, and you have the baby Crips that are just on the heels of the originals, growing up under Raymond Washington and Tookie and Jamel and a lot of those big name guys. These generations ushered in gangs like the Castle Crips, Faux Trey Gangsters, the Kitchen Crips, the Swans, 103rd Street, 109th Street, Hickory Street, Jordan Down Crips, 7-4 and A-Tray Hoovers, 62nd Street, 89th Street, and so on. Original Block Crip, Avalon Gangsters, 11-8, Q102, Underground Crip, Neighborhood Crip, the Inglewood Crips, different sets in Compton. Then you had that third generation, which branched off, and some of the second generation of the name falls under this category as well. They started making sets. So now you have individual sets, right? You got all these sets on the west side, and you got some sets on the east side, and now they branching off in Compton as well. Them are the dudes, for the most part, not every single person, but stereotypical, that's that third generation. There's still a lot of sets that hadn't started yet. They haven't put the B, the P, or the C on it yet until 73 and later. So we done went from the originals to the baby Crips to that third generation of Crips. And I'm kind of leaving the Bloods out, but some of the Bloods fall in those same categories, especially those dudes that once upon a time claimed Crip or flirted with being Crips before they decided to join what later became the Bloods. They went to school together, lived by each other at some points, knew each other's cousins, played together, little league sports and things like that. So now you got guys that like to put themselves as baby Crips, that say they started Cripping when Crips came to Compton or Cripping came to the west side. So they might have been 10 years old, 9 years old. You could say you was a Crip. I thought I was a Crip. I thought I was banging. Just because you dressed the part, just because you put on some khakis and some chucks with blue strings and a blue belt and a golf hat, didn't really make you no hardcore Crip. It didn't make you no validated Crip. How much work are you putting in at 9 and 10 years old for the set, for the gang, right? Yeah, you made a new Raymond. You made a new Tookie. You made a new Mac. You made a new Salty. You made a new Marcellus. You feel me? You made a new Mad Dog, Moto, PP, Big James, Miller. You feel me? You see what I'm saying? Barefoot Pookie, Michael Concepcion, Warlock, O'Neal, Babyface. You know what I mean? Burley Swan, Big Doc Dome, and so on and so forth. But you wasn't out there putting it down. You may have walked in the store and stole a beer. You may have walked in the store and stole some wine. You wasn't walking up on nobody doming them. You wasn't walking up on nobody and shooting them in the torso. In the early 1970s, most kids were at home, taking a bath, doing homework, having dinner with their family, and getting ready for school the next morning. The teenagers, 14, 15, 16, 17, they were the ones doing the killing and being killed. So now we start talking about the next generation of guys who are now putting in the work when the Crip on Crip war started in South LA. Right? Then later on, Crip on Crip in Compton, Bloods fighting each other, Pyrus fighting each other, and so forth. So to me, you fall into that for sure, without a question. That third generation is putting in that work. After that, in LA, I ain't speaking for all the other parts of LA, come that Tiny Loc generation. That fourth generation. So let's be clear. Generations of Crips and generations of Bloods are not the same as generations in a particular set. Because you got sets that started around 72. You know, Crip multiplication, 73. So 72, 73, people branching off, they sets are becoming recognized. 75, 76, you got more gangs coming into the fold. You got the Bicentennial Crips, and you have those dudes that ran with or looked up to the generation above them. Maybe they intermingled. Those are separate. Those are separate entities, man. Within your gang, each gang has its own order, dates, and age. Because everybody that started 60s or A-Tray Gangster or Santana Block aren't going to be the same age as a dude that might have been from Bishop or Castle Crip or from Oaks Park or from Midtown. Like, the ages start to differ as you have different sets that expanded off the original tree of Raymond Washington's Crips. I know some people like to say there was two different Crips. There was not two different Crips going on. What are the chances that some guys in the 70s around Raymond Washington claim Eastside Crip? Then you got guys like Victor Adams in the 80s. You got guys like Mad Dog and Moto in the 100s, and Mac Thomas, Lil James, the Qs, and they don't know each other. What's the chances of that? Think about that. So these splinter gangs have their own pecking order. So now you got the OGs, you know, the littles, the babies, the tinies, the infants, and so on. Compton would be different. They have the, you know, the OGs, OBGs, OTGs, and so forth, right? OYGs, etc. But those aren't going to be the same as you break down generations of originals before different sets formed, when the Crips was just forming, when the anti-Crip gangs were forming, or when they became blood. All that's going to differ. So that's why you don't hear a lot of people speaking on generations, not only because they differ from sections and from individual sets as it opposes to the guys that started the Crips, but because, quite frankly, they don't even understand how it go, and they are not equipped to even break that down for you. The age bracket doesn't matter. It's how they perceive their information and done their research and put things in its proper perspective. A lot of these dudes will tell you they was cripping in this year, at this age, but then you ask them, where did you live? And these dudes done lived in rival territory. These dudes went to rival schools. So it's really no way that a lot of these dudes was cripping when they say they was crippin'. Like, where did your Crip influence come from? How you crippin' with these dudes that didn't like Crips? How you crippin' and your set ain't even started yet? You don't even know nobody over there yet. But, you know, coming up, a lot of times we see Crips or we see Bloods. We want to be a part of that movement. We want to be one of them. So we dress like them, talk like them, walk like them. We write on walls. We claim it. We throw it up. We do all that. But you really ain't got put on. You ain't had no squabble. You ain't stabbed nobody, shot nobody. Ain't nobody chased you home to your mama house, shot out your windows. You ain't driving no car yet. You ain't stealing no cars. You see what I'm saying? So people can think how they want to think of themselves. You know, I always use this as a reference. I used to think I was G'd up every day. I'll go back and look at my pictures, and I found that I was not G'd up every day. I was not G'd up almost every day. So sometimes we had a wrong perception of ourselves because of how we feel inside and how we, you know how they say people selective politics? Sometimes we selective think of ourselves as bigger or better or earlier than we really were. It don't take somebody else to tell me. I could look at my photo album or I could look in the mirror, and that'll trigger my recollection. It triggers my memory and puts me in my proper place and lets me know, no, I was not doing some of the things I thought I was doing, but yeah, I was claiming Crip. Yeah, I dressed the part sometime. I ran with Crips on the east side and west side, but I wasn't part of that gang. I grew up with a lot of these dudes. I met a lot of these dudes. We got in trouble. We did juvenile delinquent things together. That still don't validate my cripping at a young age. Now, a lot of that theory changed over the years because now you got generations of Crips. So yeah, now you do have dudes at 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, going into junior high school, full-fledged gangbanging. Hey, with that said, man, I'm out of here. I ain't trying to preach to nobody. Just try to give y'all that info, that breakdown for y'all. Be sure to click that like button. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I tell all sorts of stories here, and I give little history tidbits here and there and things from my perspective. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I'm out of here, y'all. Don't forget to leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Salute.
This is Los Angeles.